So before I go to Deb, Bill, a couple of things that, and I could be wrong, but in Warwick, this was actually done at a town meeting. I think it had the select board put it on, but it was voted at town meeting. And I could be wrong. My understanding was all the towns meeting, voted at a town meeting. So maybe some did, maybe some didn't. And the other thing is the planning board, we are a separate entity. We're appointed by the moderator of each town, not the, Board of Selectmen. And I know you know this. I just want to, kind of make sure we're still on the same page for, so we're a separate entity. It's set up by law that, you form a regional planning board. We're separate from the school committee. And our charge is to be looking at, does it make sense to form a larger regional district? So we were set up by statute, and so that's the process we're following. I'm 100% in agreement that we've got to have more conversations with the school committees and involving them and sharing information. So that can be maybe one of the strategies or next step with the marketing part in terms of involving more stakeholders. So let's keep that in mind as we go to next steps to reach out to communicate more. And thank you for doing that with your own board, Bill. Much appreciated. More needs to be done at the pioneer level.
Alan, I think that's, may I just quickly jump in and say, I think that's an important point. Because what I heard Bill saying is that there doesn't seem to have been a lot of buy-in from the Pioneer Valley School Committee. That's been my impression. And I was concerned reading Mary's report that so few teachers from Pioneer showed up at either meeting. The Gilmontague School Committee did vote to endorse this process. I don't believe, unless I'm wrong, the Pioneer School Committee never has.
Correct.
It kind of voted sort of to something a little similar, as close as they've ever gotten. And what I heard Bill saying is that that's a problem that we should pay attention to. So that's all.
Yeah, I agree. But it's not up, it's not the school committee's decision to whether or not we do this or not. It's the town's decision. But it's certainly, we'd be remiss if we didn't have more conversations with the school committees, whether they buy in or like it or don't like it. Certainly it goes a long way, I would think, at a town meeting vote to hear what their school committee representatives, would have to say. So, Deb, I'm sorry, you've been patient.
It's okay. I was just going to a couple things. Number one, agree with Greg for a second. When we talked about doing something on community TV, this was truly the first introduction of this is what's out there. I did not want it to be cheerleader like we could beat the world, kind of market it like that. Our thought, I think, from when we met Michelle's here was really just to be a general introduction to the community of this is what's kind of going on, and this is why, and here's the facilities, and in the future you will see more about this. So we didn't want to hit them over the head with a hammer the first time out. We wanted to once again introduce it to the general community because we felt like the general community really didn't know what was going on. And then once they became kind of curious, possibly, that would then be the next step, Mary, of having, students and faculty or whatever join in and so forth. But I think the initial thought of what my committee talked about was just having it be an overview of, in case you've heard grumblings, this is what's out there.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this. It's there was a lot going on at Pioneer, besides the concern about what does this mean, for my job, or what does this mean for the, for the district. They had a principal that they really many liked that was not renewed. They had an interim superintendent. There's some struggles going on with trying to come together in contract negotiations. So there's a number of factors that are all contributing that, each one of them become a little more stressful. And I think, in
COVID.
fairness, pardon?
And COVID.
Oh, and then COVID
yeah.
and all the stress with that. So in fairness to the teachers and the administration, I just want to point out that there was a lot more going on their plate than I think, the teachers with Gil Montague. So in fairness, I want to point out the other parameters or factors that may have contributed to, I need a break and not come back after school got out.
I think
Yep.
what Bill said was a very true statement, though. Had the statement not been made that in the winter when the presentation was made, that it was a bad presentation or whatever, I'd be honest with you, I'm kind of with Bill on that we went up there with open arms, tossed out information, no opinions, and we got barraged back about this and this and this and this and this. So I just want to agree with Bill that when that comment was made about that winter meeting being inappropriate, whatever the wording was, to be honest with you, if a lot of stuff is going on, I agree with you. They have a lot more going on, but to hammer on the people who went up there with open arms to try to help them to, just hear what's going on. Like I said, I'm once again dumbfounded that
Yeah.
was made.
And I did dig deeper into that and really found that there was a miscommunication in terms of the principal, I guess, communicated with the staff that it was going to be a 15-minute presentation. And I don't know, someone should have stepped up and said, hey, we got to wrap this up because we have some other stuff. I guess they were also planning to do some professional development. And so that didn't happen. So people were just, kind of upset that the presentation went longer. And I think that sort of got vented. So I'm not sure where that came from. I spoke to Kevin Burke personally to ask him, why was I hearing that? And he said, well, those were the two factors that from his view was there. So I never heard it was a bad presentation. I heard the staff was frustrated and that it took longer. Bill?
Just to correct that record, there was no principal there.
Right.
Whoever the assistant was there. We were invited to start speaking. We had a 15-minute presentation, and it was not us that carried the meeting on further at all. It was them, and nobody came in to say, hey, we have to move on to something else. It's totally ridiculous to say that we were doing anything other than what we offered to do, and the rest of it came from the reaction to our being there. So I don't have any apology for that particular setting. And secondarily, in spite of all of this, I am still fully supportive of what we're trying to do. So you don't have to worry about that, Alan. It's that's not part of the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Uh,
All right. Are we going to move to the
Could I
next?
just add something quickly here? As I was leaving that particular meeting, there were some comments made that were negative, but I was very pleased to see that two of the most outspoken people were teachers who came to Mary's sessions and contributed positively to that. So I think they really do want to find out more about it and help imagine what can be possible. They just didn't know enough. They didn't have enough background.
Along
And-
those lines, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, I'm done.
Just along those lines, one thing that we heard at that meeting in particular was that people have been describing, I think, the need of moving in this direction, but haven't been talking about what would be ideal for kids, what would be great for kids.
Yeah.
They loved doing that, and they were really animated by that. So I think the more you can try to focus the message on the opportunity for kids, the more powerful and the more receptive your audience will be.
Cool.
Hey, Mary, you want to continue with the follow-up now of anything else on the presentation, and then let's look at what next steps could be?
I see, yeah, Mike and Greg have their hands up first. Why don't we let them weigh in? Mike and then Greg?
Okay, well, yeah, I was gonna keep going on the presentation. Mary, I think you did a great job. I did find, I was concerned too, as I said, that so few people from Pioneer showed up. And I've gotten a little sense from listening to this discussion as to why that may have been. I also found myself reading through the list of things, wondering, which ones of those possibilities in a new district would result from an actual combination of Gilmontague and Pioneer versus which might result from basically a larger district formed in any way, and which ones were just great ideas for things that might be done that wouldn't necessarily need a larger district might need something else that the districts don't have, like, for example, more money. That might happen. And because, one of my questions going into this exercise was, if the two specific districts were to merge, what extra capacity might there be among the existing staff, given the existing staff, assuming everybody stayed, which is an assumption, but assuming everybody stayed, what extra capacity would there be, and what might be done with that extra capacity? And when I see things like, well, maybe we could offer Chinese and Japanese, my first thought was, well, does that mean that there's actually at least one person on staff who could offer those things? Or is that just something that someone thought, gee, that'd be great if we could do that?
Mike, in order to answer your question, I think there are a couple of things that really stand out as the potential if the districts were to merge. One is that it's very difficult to implement the middle school model with fidelity with the very small staffs and the very small student bodies, because people are working cross, in middle school and high school. They're not dedicated to the middle school. They're working in different philosophies, really, between the two levels. And
You're talking about the existing situation.
in the existing situation. So I think
Okay.
that people are really, middle school educators would really love to have the opportunity to have a dedicated middle school model, to have a team that is intact, as opposed to sort of working at different levels and unable to really devote themselves that way. The other is really the coordination and opportunity for project-based learning. I think that the recognition that there are the resources all around both regions that they could tap into, it would probably need a bit of coordination. They would like to do it in cross-disciplinary ways. But I gather they don't feel like they can be doing that right now. but see the potential to do it if they were to combine resources.
That would be the result of having more students.
More students and
More
enough
staff.
staff to implement that.
Okay.
And
I
they
just,
were really excited about that.
okay, no, that's fine. I'm just trying to understand which piece goes where. And just one comment, I feel like I have to say it. One of the points was that Turner's Falls is the only high school north of Amherst that has a pool.
Right, is that not
Um,
true?
No, well, that may be true. I don't know about north of Amherst, but in this part of the state, that was mentioned back in the early 2000s when the high school renovation went in.
Mhm.
That whole project cost around $30 million. Reimbursement from the state was around 90%. So
Wow.
the district paid around $3 billion for that. And the voters were convinced to pay an extra $1 million, roughly a quarter more or a third more, to renovate the pool because the pool was not eligible for state reimbursement. And there was a big point made at that time that having a pool would draw more students to the district and be a huge benefit. And I just mentioned that because I'm not sure that's really been true. And here I see it again. And
Yeah.
I don't want to be negative, but you know, I think having the pool is a great thing. I'm not against having a pool. But you know, has it really drawn a lot of students to Turner's Falls? Maybe Deb knows.
First Greg and then Deb.
I was just going to comment. I don't care if it draws people in. What I care about is we save lives because there are a community on a river. And having a pool as a resource is something that benefits the entire community. I've seen students drown in that river and lost them because they just weren't smart. And it's unfortunate that people in the community or surrounding communities wouldn't count it as a wonderful addition to any program. And you're right, has it panned out that it's drawn people? It's because people just really don't appreciate what it can do for a community. And maybe it hasn't been marketed well enough by the school, but certainly putting that in there, if I was in Pioneer and I, once again, I have a grandson who doesn't swim at age 7, and I thought, wow, I might have access to a pool and so forth, it would be awesome. So it might not be being used, but it's an awesome addition. I'm glad someone put it in there.
Thanks, Deb. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, to Mike's point, Mike, there was quite a bit of discussion regarding if you expanded the enrollment and what would be possible with that. Some of it was wish list stuff that I think that's what you're thinking about, like how do you decipher what's a wish list and what's actually possible when you merge the districts. But we kept pressing that point, and we got some very good answers, especially in foreign languages. Some of the things that we talked about, they fully admitted that we would have better arts in particular. So, a larger band, athletics were there and represented, and they said absolutely athletics would be more robust when you have twice the amount of students, because they could have JV teams, and Pioneer could actually have a football team again. And there was also people from the English department that would like to be able to teach in American studies in humanities class. Can't do it because there's not enough enrollment. Their schedule is constricted because of enrollment. There was actually one really experienced teacher. I can't remember her name now, but she was right on top of it. Like she could. She's like, we do have classes that are not running because we don't have the enrollment, and we are being forced to do things because they're all potentially enrollment driven, and we don't have it. So there was plenty of discussion about that. I did reach out to Mary right after she sent it to me and say, we really need to give some more context, because I could see that question coming up, which is some of it was wish list And some of it was, absolutely on point in terms of what could be done if they merged.
And just
Well,
one other
would it be
point. Thank you.
possible to, sorry, not to put more work on Mary, but would it be possible to add that to the report to kind of separate out things that would definitely result from a merge of the districts, meaning extra capacity and greater enrollment, versus things that the existing teachers think would be great things they would like to do,
And
but
one,
don't necessarily flow directly from the merge.
and one of the things that they also brought up was the fact that you have teachers teaching middle school and high school. That's because of enrollment. That's
So,
because,
Mike, that's
No, I
really,
understand, I understand that there's some things, I just thought there
Yeah.
were some things on the list that struck me as being things you would need to add. No, you don't have existing staff that could make these things happen.
All right,
And
just a couple
that
things.
Dippy
Deb
was-
Pote wrote in, so I want to make sure it's captured because people can't see the chat. She said, wouldn't it be, a great idea, I'm paraphrasing, if, learning how to swim or taking swim classes, whatever, are part of the, the PE curriculum. I will say that we were at the school and it was still in session. There was a, they had a summer program, but there were kids that were using the pool and with a lifeguard so who knows if it's keeping kids there that may have left. So I'm going to go to Deb and then to Michelle and then turn it back to you, Mary.
I just wanted to add that the pool is definitely part of the educational curriculum at Turner's Falls, so it is not just an athletic team. All middle schoolers go in the pool, all high schoolers. At this point, I don't know, once again, due to class sizes, if they're doing it, but it is definitely part of the educational program that kids get in the pool.
Thank you. And Michelle, is your hand up?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I first want to make a comment and then I wanted to throw a suggestion out. So my kids went to Turner's Falls and took a lifeguard course. My daughter's 40. My son's 36. So I don't know when the pool put in, but they also did summer tennis there too. And they offered a lot of different programs. A lot of different sports that Pioneer did not have, and they love swimming there. The suggestion I want to make, and I know this is going to be a big ask, but now that we have numbers of the future children, right? We know how many kids are in the elementary grades. Could we create some sort of a model so that we can present this to the staff possibly in the fall? It would be a model of the curriculum just for middle school. Because if the teachers want that model, I think there are also parents that want that model. And so I don't know, I think we need to start moving in the direction where we can start showing some results. And I don't know if that's a big ask, but I think we have to start somewhere in focusing on courses like maybe swimming is part of gym. Maybe Pioneer could have a greenhouse. We have enough land there, but maybe the greenhouse is not a curriculum in middle school. Maybe it becomes one in high school. I don't know. I just think we not only have to get the information out there, but I think we have to start looking at models too.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Mary, can I go back to you?
Was there not somebody else first? Sure. First of all, I just want to say to Mike, what you asked me to say, to tease out what is because, that could happen because of a merger was the question. Okay, so that's what I was asking and just capturing the responses to that. So in their minds, all of those things were things that could happen because of the merger. And so the other point I wanted to make, and Greg made me think of this, is the other thing that, in answer to your question, Mike, is right now there are a lot of middle school kids who either have to play JV sports or they don't participate. And even if they join a JV team, they drop out because they're not played. So there's a sense that having enough kids will mean that you could have middle school sports, which was huge for these educators. So what other, did that answer everybody's questions so far?
Well, I'd like to respond quickly to what Michelle suggested, because that sounds like a great idea. I kind of thought that's what this session was going to produce, but I guess not.
I think that is the next step for educators, though. I don't think that this committee can do that.
Well, that's why that was my question, is when Michelle says we should produce it, I was wondering who we would be. So maybe we'll talk about that.
Right.
That I don't see any, that's just a mechanical logistic question. We take their enrollment, we play it out to see what it will be and who will be graduating over time. You know, Pioneer graduated, I think it was 25. I think Gil Montague had about 80,
No,
perhaps. Pardon?
Well, Alan, Michelle was talking about creating a program based on enrollment numbers.
Right, but
A
you have the
model, right?
numbers and then you look at what you'd be able to do. And I think that's what the middle school staff was doing, to have a dedicated 8th grade, 7th grade, to have teams of teachers and what they could do within those teams. They were pretty excited about that possibility. You know, Deb had commented that she thinks people know how, what the resources would be, you know, at Pioneer. She took it off the screen too quick for me to convey for her. Pioneer graduated 23. This
35.
and 35 at Gil Montague. Thank you. So those are you know, those are tough numbers in terms of who are we competing with? Are we competing with mainstream high schools? Are we competing with charter schools? Those numbers are pretty small. So Deb, and I'd really want to get back to Mary to finish and then start next steps. So go ahead, Deb.
This is just quick, and Michelle reminded me of it. One of the things our committee talked about was the reason why we liked the community TV idea was because we really should be talking to elementary school parents, because it's the elementary school parents who eventually are going to have their kids affected by this merger. And so that was one of the reasons why we thought going out to the community in that fashion would start to involve those elementary school parents. And Michelle just reminded me when we met, that was one of the things we talked about was having them try to be a part of it.
And that's where I'm coming from with the numbers. We know what's in our elementary schools.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I know that the staff seem to think that more hands-on opportunities, you know, the project-based with hands-on opportunities would keep a lot more people in the district versus going to tech or some of the other options out there. So, Alan, I can talk about next steps. These were mostly generated by the group. Meeting with staffs again to clarify misconceptions and get them thinking positively was one of the things that they suggested. I think that they really want the buy-in of the Pioneer Valley and Pioneer Valley staff. But they also are really anxious to see the marketing focus. And I think that there was enough energy around that, that it would potentially work to try to tap into that, not with offering stipends or anything, but I would love to try to bring the teachers together around, to share the report with them, to see what energy they might have on supporting the efforts of the group, both among themselves to flesh out these ideas. We went overtime, definitely overtime in Gil Montague. We went right to the 11:30 time. So people were engaged and wanting to keep talking. So my recommendation would be to try to bring the staff together and tap their thinking, especially with marketing ideas, with structure program ideas. We could, I think they could probably answer Michelle's question about creating a model to present for the fall.
So would you be willing, Mary, to just send out an invitation to do a remote meeting, to invite them and maybe invite a friend or two of staff to participate in that? I think Karen had brought up the bring a friend idea. So that'd be great if you're willing to do that. Does anyone have any objection to Mary? The iron is hot, so to speak, in terms of was fresh in their minds. They had a lot of good conversations, and I think they would pick that ball up and maybe continue the conversations and drill down a little deeper. So it certainly would be helpful, and maybe other people would. So many things come about from conversations with other staff, formally or informally, in the teacher's room, or in whether collaborating or visiting with each other over the summer. So I think it has benefit.
So I would love to do that. And we talked a little in the education committee yesterday about doing that. I'm sorry, not the education committee, the survey committee.
Working group.
Work group, right. Thank you. So are people all right with my just running with that a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see whether they choose to participate or not. Good. Okay. And
Well, let me see, just as a informal, can you give a thumbs up if you think it's a good idea, thumbs down, or if you're not sure, go sideways. Just I'm seeing a sideways and most thumbs up. Okay. So that'd be, sure, try it.
Deb says.
I just want to be cautious. Once again, this is summertime, and to get staff there, even from Gil Montague, is it was a come on now, you can do this. I don't want to have them think this is an ongoing summer process, that it's unfortunate about the timing and you could toss it out there. But at this point in time, I just want to be conscious of, drawing the blood from the stone at some point might not have them ready in the fall to be really excited about it. So yeah, that's why I'm sideways.
Yeah, and maybe she could put it out that way, Deb, in terms of, is there anyone that would have an interest in doing this? Like, I want to respect your summer and so forth, but if there is an interest, I could, do a remote meeting. So Mary, you could handle that in a very soft way, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep. And if you're all right with my sharing the report as it stands, and I could give some of the feedback from this meeting about things that people would like to understand better.
Can you go back to the comment? So I'd have to go back when the meeting with Pioneer, did it say a bad meeting? How was that phrased?
Negative something.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Negative experience.
Negative experience.
Well,
Well,
I just don't want to, I don't know, maybe it wasn't well received. I don't know. I don't want to have something that, you know, gives them a black eye and, you know, if that, you know, the Pioneer staff had negative experience with, yeah, that, I think they had concerns. Pioneer staff had concerns about, the well, I wasn't there. Concerns about the merger,
Yeah,
concerns
We were
about,
there, Alan.
They had a
It's
negative
okay.
how would
experience.
you do it, Bill? Bill, how might you suggest that be worded? If we were going to word it differently, but still capture,
Oh, I understand you want to.
it wasn't well
Edit
received.
something, so no, I would, that's true. They had a negative experience. I don't,
Okay,
I said, I got no apologies.
okay. Well, I didn't know if it was, if it just wasn't well received. And so that was their,
They had a negative experience because they really didn't like the idea.
okay.
So
All right.
that negative experience was they don't like the idea. And all the questions that came out were negative kind of questions because either for whatever reason, that was kind of what happened. So if that's what they think, that's what they think. That's what we
Okay.
think. Move on.
No, wait.
So be
All
it.
right.
And I suggest that you just change the wording to say they had a negative experience following the presentation.
No.
Well, that's what you guys are saying.
No. It was during the presentation. And I really think they weren't at the outset prepared well for it. They weren't informed well before it. And it was kind of scary for a lot of people walking in. That's what I think.
Yeah, and the little bit that I got was, I just think there was a different expectation. They had one
Yeah.
expectation, and I don't know what that was, but I don't think it's,
Alan, I think,
what transpired was, you know, their expectation.
Alan,
So you
I think,
can leave it the way it is.
Alan, I think Karen, though, she nailed it. From what I gleaned from the two Pioneer teachers that were there, they specifically said it was a negative experience. They went into it thinking they weren't very well informed. They had sort of interpreted it as we're going to lose our jobs, or maybe we should start looking for new jobs. And so that was, you know, and part of this is on us, is that we haven't been able to reach the community. The one thing that was very interesting at the end of these meetings was that we asked them how they were feeling about this process now. And after, the majority of the Gil Montague teachers were at both meetings, and they felt really good about it. They felt, one teacher even said, you know, I was really dreading coming to this meeting and thinking, you know, how soon is it till I retire? And she says, I got through these two meetings, and she goes, I have a completely different outlook on this now. So I want to point out the fact that when they were talking about marketing, they were talking originally about getting the information out there when the meetings were over, right? Or through the process of the meeting, organically, they got excited about the opportunities. That's what came about. They began talking to each other. The two different teachers, the teachers from Gil Montague started to really converse with the Pioneer about the middle school program. Oh, we thought you didn't have, you weren't going to do that. Oh, it turns out we are. Oh, now we feel much better about the homogeneous and heterogeneous grouping. They were like, oh, we can work that out actually pretty easily. They thought it was going to be this big contentious thing. And then they talked about it, and they're like, oh, well, we kind of do both. We kind of do this. Yes, we do that in times. We're not all this. We're not all that. And they immediately started to feel better about the whole experience. So that's kind of how the meetings went. They started off with a little bit of being standoffish and asking a lot of questions about context and how did the planning board develop? How did it come about? Why aren't, what are some of the other options which we brought up? So, Mike, we did say, well, there's a lot of ideas out there, and maybe you find those other ideas more palatable. I said, but once we explain how we came about, organically, they started getting excited by having conversations with themselves, which I thought was.
And that teacher said, maybe I won't retire now. Bill?
I am retired. No, I want to add to this. It's clear that at that particular time at Pioneer, the reaction that we got was not totally because of us. They stated, or an individual, or several of them in more ways than one, talked about the fact that they had a lot of flux in their administration there, and that was unsettling to them. They had a lot of changes in positions because of reductions in staff, and they also commented on, they thought that this was a done deal. The first two things had nothing to do with us. The last one being a done deal, we stated clearly that it wasn't a done deal. We also ran up against the fear, clearly, of some people thinking that, what is this? Is this my pink slip? And we tried to, through the discussion, assure them that actually the only people that might be affected by this are the people in the central office, who some of you are very disturbed with anyway. But so, we understood that it was not all directed at us or the whole concept, but it was, as everyone has said, yes, a little more information out there, a little less disinformation would be helpful. And I'm sure we can move forward with Mary. I think you can help us. So I appreciate that.
So Mary, can you move to next steps now, and let's try to nail down some things that we as a group or subgroups or working groups can be doing.
Now, again, these were essentially the ones that were generated by the group. And so whether these are relevant or not will depend. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of members of the team clarifying misconceptions with staff, and they don't feel that it's been a user-friendly process so far. And I mean, they say even the name is sort of off-putting. The 6-town regionalization planning board sounds too technocratic or something. So I think what they want is to really stay in the power of what we could do for kids. And the motivation, the dreaming, the ideal, as opposed to, I mean, I think they're ready to overcome a lot of barriers as long as they have a voice in it and they have the opportunity to work with others. That's one reason I really would love to get out to get back to them with the report and inviting their continuing experience with it. Because yes, summer may not be a great time, but once they're back in school, that's not a great time either. So we'll take advantage of the summer now.
So I these are recommendations that they made of where the focus could be and things that need more development, if you will.
Right.
I was
So
trying to get kind of looking more at some of the ideas, like we know we're going to do a survey. There's going to be a presentation. Deb brought up an idea about, the TV and sharing that, and then more teacher involved in immediate and maybe in the fall. And what are we doing for public forums? So I was trying to look at the 3,000 foot view and having people put together a plan. We've been following our goals at the end of each agenda and our apps. So just trying to nail that down into the sequence of activities that we should be doing to market these, including the recommendations that you have in front.
Is that large enough for everybody to see? I could probably expand it a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yep, I can.
That,
It's okay.
that's good, but I wonder, should we be looking at the other concerns? We spent a lot of time talking about the first concern.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But there's other number of other ones on that list. How do we want to react to them?
Alan, isn't there a law that you can't fire staff because you've merged? So reassuring people that they're not going to be fired, is that accurate?
No, not entirely. What you can't have is people can't make any less money than they're making. So, if there was a merger, Pioneer staff comes up to at least the base of
Right.
Gil Montague if their staff there is, so no one can lose money.
I think I read it in the Mars report then, that it says something about state law regarding retention.
I think the state laws that he was referring to go back, but no one can, you can't pay somebody less.
What it said,
but
but and we'll double check.
I can
that.
check.
I think Alan's correct.
Okay.
You don't,
I mean, they got very specific, like they were laughing about the length of bus rides, but then they said you just have to make sure you have chargers on the buses for the kids.
oh, there's an.
oh, that should
R-
say chargers. I was going to ask what that meant. It says
Oh,
chargers.
Chargers, yeah, chargers. Sorry.
Yeah, and
That's fine. I mean, my
I
grandkids had to
the,
pay to ride.
bus
the
ride
school
to the
bus.
tech school is a little longer than the ride. It depends on where you're coming from, but I
Right.
don't.
The tech
don't-
school's
And
got a
some
different
kids will have shorter
population, too.
rides.
Michelle, did you have your hand up?
What's still popping out at me, instead of focusing on some of the negative, is the dream school of opportunities.
Right.
That is just sticking out at me. And I think we need to try and embrace that and work with those teachers who want the possibilities. A
Yeah.
lot of, some people embrace change, some people do not. And I think this has been, how long have we been working on this? 3 years, 4 years? I really think that we should try to embrace those teachers if they want to go with it. I don't know,
And Michelle, I think being asked to be a part of it is the most important thing. If it is
Yes.
top down, it will not work.
Correct.
It,
I agree.
there are so many good ideas among the staff. They should have an opportunity to propose themselves what it will look like. And so I think going with a repeat meeting with the same individuals and maybe bringing some others along is a great way to build enthusiasm.
Yep, I agree.
There was one particular person who was at both meetings and she was very quiet at first and listened carefully. And I actually was at the point as the facilitator that I was going to say, you've been very quiet. And then she just unloaded with all this wisdom. And she was the one who really got into the marketing and how there was so much potential in the language. So she's one I would really love to make sure is going to be a part of this going forward. But all of them invited, as Karen said, and Alan said, to bring a buddy. Great. Any other thoughts about the concerns or the recommendations?
just, can we talk a little bit about the one about positives of diversity? Where did that come from?
Yeah. That was kind of thrown out there without a lot of discussion. We were winding down and I was capturing what they were describing as some concerns. So I can't really say much more about what they had in mind about that. But I do think, I mean, I've actually been busy this spring doing a superintendent search in Hamden, Connecticut, which is at this point, I think about 57% students of color and the remainder Caucasian. And that community, everybody, when asked about the positives in the community, says our diversity. That's the first thing out of every single person in the community's mouth. So I think what they're saying is make sure people are given the language to value diversity.
Mary, is it clear that the next step was also their recommendation would, involve students to, whether it be, forums, conversations, surveys and so forth? That I think that was,
Yeah, the second to the last bullet there.
yeah.
Yep.
And
And
also
So
the
what do you, go ahead.
the third bullet too. What the staff knowing what the students have expressed they want, but they can't get.
Yeah. Yep. But why not ask the students that too?
Yeah, yeah.
I think we did in the last survey. I think that was part of what was asked, but it would be different. And when we talked last fall, or I guess it was in January when I was giving recommendations after the work in the fall, the idea of having community conversations, and you could have it among groups of students, or you could have diverse groups that included teachers, students, parents, having conversations about a lot of this. Get the grant to provide a meal for everybody. And I think that getting robust groups of people to come together, talking about what could be the dream school of opportunities, could be a really powerful next step. Maybe not immediately next, but next
Mhm.
grant.
Well, certainly, yeah, the community conversations and the forums will be part of this. Did you to Mary, other than what says here for their recommendations, capture it part of the next steps of some of the other things that, like Deb had talked a lot about, maybe a presentation, but
But this is
the
just
TV.
this is just the report on my conversation with the staff. So
Right.
that
All
was
right.
not part of that.
Okay, so
It's
are you
not-
going to transition over to us and lead a conversation about what the next steps would be? I was assuming, or no?
Oh, sure. Well, Deb has her hand up, and then let's go there, Alan.
I
So-
can't see anybody else because of,
Yeah,
The
you can take
display?
that down now. I can't either, Karen,
Okay,
thank you.
stop the share. Yeah.
thank you.
So my question was just going to be, in what direction do you want my committee to go?
I think what you're doing with the committee is terrific. And I would love to have you just pause until I've had the opportunity to meet with staff. I hope to do that soon. And then help inform the message that could come through there.
You know,
Does that work? I mean, I think if your message is, if we combine, I don't know, you don't want it to be a heavy sell, but I think that if it's, there is a lot of opportunity, the dream school of potential. There are so many resources. I also wonder whether you want to capture some of the local resources in addition to the schools that the schools could be partnering with. I think that
Right,
could be.
and then you're, once again, then you're getting into a television show, for lack of a better explanation of the scope of work for me at that point of now, contacting all the local, I think we were really talking about an intro and certainly including some quotes, the BCTVN guy, whatever he is, might ask the question, and what does the staff think about this? And Greg, might say, well, here are some of the comments that they've made. This could be the dream school of whatever. So to toss terminology out there that they might hear in the future, leading terms that get them thinking, but isn't quite the answer yet. This is not it. This is not meant to be the answer to everyone's questions. This is meant to give them enough information so they could start asking educated questions about, oh, this is why this might be a good idea.
Mhm.
It's really to start the conversation within all the communities, not to have the answers to all those questions, but certainly having, like you said, input. This is what, the kids, the staff have thought about this. Tossing that out there, I think would be awesome. You could even toss in, the results of the student surveys. You could toss out, well, in a survey, 52% of the kids said it'd be great if we could have astronomy. Just in any case. But I don't want it to be all the answers. I
Right.
want it to be the engagement of the community into the process.
Right. Right.
So that leads to, what would we be sponsoring or promoting that would engage the communities in a variety of ways? Early on, we had talked about putting up a tag paper that would have, some information on it in some of the local stores and things. So, people could see that. I think, Deb, you came up with that. Different maybe flyers that we just generate and leave around, more involvement to getting on school committee agendas. I didn't know, I thought we talked about doing more parent forums or maybe going to the PTA meetings, but we had generated a number of ideas to work toward engaging more. We just hadn't refined what those would be. And as you said, and Mike said, and others, we'd have to try to have a consistent message in each one of those venues.
Right. Right. I see Raina's hand.
Yeah, so there have been a couple of things that I did want to just echo that, needing to ask students and parents what they want and can't access in their current schools. And I've heard a lot of comments in the community that they either think it's a done deal that this merger is going to happen, and I've had people ask me, when is it going to happen, and this needs to happen now, or there's the complete opposite reaction of, like this complete loss of identity, and they want to fight it. So I think it's really important to share information about the process, and I think, to Greg's point, it's really important for people to know where it came from, and that this is not the only, this is the only idea that this committee is exploring. It doesn't mean there aren't other ideas, but where did this come from? I think is a missing piece for a lot of people.
So things to make sure are included in this messaging. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's a great point, and you're making me think, Raina. I was not at the town meeting at Warwick, and obviously I was in other town meetings, but there had to be a rationale that was provided to the voters before they voted on that. You know, we'd like to have a 6-town regional planning board to explore, forming a larger region, but they had to have information behind that. I would think, like, we're concerned about our assessments are continuing to go up, but we see our programs continue to go down. Are we getting the value for the money we are paying? So I guess for me, even personally, that's a missing piece. I don't know how those conversations played out, that the towns voted to, let's form this planning board and explore this idea. So can someone, maybe several people that were at their town meetings, comment on that?
Maybe
Jane? Jane, you're on mute, and I'm sure you want us to hear what you're saying.
Maybe I don't. If my memory serves me, and I hope it does, the main thrust of the presentation at the 4 town meetings was supposed to be about the fact that with the continued decline in enrollment, which had nothing to do with kids choosing to go elsewhere, it's a fact of life. We have less children. And I said, well, if you want to cure that, you got to talk people into having bigger families. But I don't think we're going to cure it that way. So the thrust was that we cannot afford an education for continuing declining enrollments. The more the enrollment goes down, the more expensive education gets. And so we need to have a larger population in order to give a good rounded education, or make a good rounded education available. That doesn't mean every student's going to take the classes we wish they would, but we hope they will. And we hope the teachers are going to steer them that way. But with less and less students, 19 going into 9th grade this year, that hardly pays for math, English, and science, let alone anything else.
Right.
You need a decent sized class in order to have interactions with the students so that they're wanting to learn and they are learning. Several meetings ago, Greg did a beautiful presentation on what it means to band, to have such a small population. And I think one of his statements that night was, you just can't have a band with that few people. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a lot of the thrust in Bernardston. There was talk about what it would do to the budget, and I don't think that any promises were made one way or the other on what would happen with budgets. We talked more about the fact that you can't do a good education with less and less students. Although my mother would argue with me because she went to a one-room school where there were 12 students right through 8th grade.
Mine too.
But there was a lot less to teach then.
All right, thank you, Jane. And Deb Pote just noted that was the presentation, Jane, what you said at the town meeting in Northfield. Bill?
Right.
Oh, Bernardston.
Yeah, I think one thing, this to Deb Loomer as much as anyone else, it'd be real interesting to take both the statements from the graduating seniors at Pioneer and Gil Montague, and both of the key speakers talked about the size of their class and the struggles that it created, and then also talked about resilience and so on and so forth. So they were positive statement, presentations at the graduations, even though they focused on extenuating circumstances. And I
Mhm.
think that's nice to note that the students are aware of what's going on and the difficulties that they're coming up against. And yet they wanted to present a positive as to, yeah, we're ready to move forward and we have a great group, a lot of sympathetic, whatever that word is, activity going on. Symbiotic is what I meant. Anyway, that's another example of looking to the students to help us in understanding their perspective.
Thank you, Bill. And along those lines, they also talked about the close-knitness and the family atmosphere of knowing the staff and each other and on a personal level because of their size. But yeah, so it was refreshing to hear them speak at the graduation. Did somebody, any other town meeting, did we cover them all, Greg?
Well, I was just going to get back to next steps, because I think the next
Mm.
step would be to engage parents and students. We've been working down, the goal was to start with superintendent's central office, work our way down to faculty and staff, which we have, and now work our way down to, it's not necessarily down, it's just so that as we anticipate, when we go to the general public, they're going to ask, well, what do the teachers think? And we can say we've had these meetings. What do the superintendent and principals think? Well, we had those meetings, right? So we've gathered a lot of that information. So the next step is to move to the parents and students. And I think it's a good idea to make sure we do include elementary school families because of what was already pointed out. One thing to say, Deb, I noticed you mentioned something about tech school. There was a lot of discussion about not comparing a mainline school to tech school because there's just too many differences. One thing that kept coming up, which I think the districts acknowledge, is that their strengths are in the arts and athletics. And if they combine, they see that the arts and athletics would be very much strengthened and that there's a lot of interest from their students in these areas. The rest of that, in terms of classes that can run, they talked about that in terms of particular departments and what would be potentially possible if they had double the enrollment. So that was added. And then there was, sort of this envisioning of embodied learning and things like that. And that's when they started getting excited. But I think there was agreement that, what they do well in these two districts and that they could do much better would be in the athletics, in the arts. And if you listen to Brian Beck, when he gave his speech at the beginning of each meeting, he was saying, look, we have the potential. You've got Jaduke, you've got in Turner's Falls, you've got the, the theater. He's like, he says, we could be a potential, hotspot for kids that like arts and kids that like athletics. They're already, both districts are pretty good in different sort of teams. Combine those two and you've got something, I think, that they're recognized as being something special. So that's I think we still have to have more meetings with faculty and engage school committee. I think so. School committee, faculty say, look, we didn't have enough of Pioneer. We need to go to school committee, say, look, we had a wonderful discussion. And if you talk to the two teachers that were from Pioneer, they would agree. And they left feeling very different about what we're doing than I think the sentiment that they had with the faculty meeting that was whatever it was 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So I think, we have to capitalize on that, go back to the school committee and say, look, we're now coming out of COVID. We can now actually have in-person meetings. We really want to, get the context right of what we're doing and make sure that you're all informed, because there was a lot of excitement that came out of that meeting. And like I said, the general perception was was, wow, we really have a better idea as to what you guys are doing. And this is a little more exciting, knowing what the two districts have. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Greg. Renee, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if you have some ideas on how we could approach this with the Pioneer staff, being a teacher, and obviously involved and knowledgeable about what we're doing. Where have we missed the mark, and what could we do better to help engage the Pioneer staff from your perspective?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, from my perspective, and I think I've spoke about it before, was a lot of misunderstanding. And I think each time you attempt something, you create more understanding. So even though that first encounter at the faculty meeting was perceived however it was perceived, and I heard negative feedback as well, it was just another step. It was just another way to get where we're going and to figure out where we're going. I guess as I listen to all of this, I continue to wonder, like, if our goal, which was my understanding from the beginning, is to make a recommendation, whether this is good or bad, like our thrust in the very beginning of forming was just to make a recommendation to the folks who put us in place. So and so I think that each step we take toward gathering stakeholders and getting their feedback is getting us closer to that recommendation. And I think we need to, if that's still our goal, we need to remind ourselves and others that that's just what we're trying to fuss out. Like, we do this work imperfectly, and we're of no threat to them, but people do feel threatened. And as you alluded to, there are many things going on at Pioneer that leave people unsettled. And so we were coming off of, I would say, one of the worst years of the 3 years that we've been dealing with COVID. Like, this seemed like the hardest year for Pioneer folks.
I just have to say that's not just at Pioneer, it's everywhere. I'm not sure so much about Gil Montague, but I see it everywhere I go. It's been the toughest.
The fatigue of all of everything our shared lived experience. And so it's just real. So I don't think we need to beat ourselves up about it too much. We just need to know we're making steps toward something. And I believe it's a recommendation. So when people talk to me about it, I am still of that mindset. Is that not what we're still doing? And I guess I need to hear from the group if we've taken another step, but I don't think we did.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Well put. And I appreciate that perspective. We are taking small steps, and COVID made us take really small steps in the beginning from what we thought we were going to be doing when we initially wrote this. Teachers are worn out, and Greg just commented on that. So Mary, I don't like to have more than 2-hour meetings. It's 8:53. I do want to, I think it would make sense that if you're going to reach out and do it in a way that you think can work, and then kind of come back and tell us if that materializes, maybe be thinking about the next steps that people put out there as a board this evening, and the ideas that were shared. Maybe capture that, blend that into what you're hearing from the staff, and how we would present that in different ways to market, and then have a meeting. I don't know what's the appetite for a meeting in August, or do you think toward the end of the month? Well, we're already almost at the end of the month, so what are people's thoughts? What do you think, Mary? When would be realistic?
I really think that's up to the group. I know I'm going to be away at some point in August, but I mean, toward the end of August, it seems more and more people are getting back to work.
Right.
What are you thinking of meeting with teachers, or putting out a remote and just see?
I'm going to
people have
try
an
to
interest?
work on that very soon. I think I might even, contact people tomorrow.
I have a quick question about, our working groups, though, we should be continuing to work on what we're working on. One of the things I just wanted to bring up is the I've got a lot of footage of Pioneer at this point. Deb, I got your videos. Thank you. It was, I think was it your niece? I think it was, or is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Niece or your nephew or your cousin or I don't know. I can't remember. It seemed like because school was still in session, he or she was still, niece. She was a little, I think, feeling a little awkward about, going into rooms. So I actually had a good chance at this last meeting that I went to with that Mary facilitated to walk through all of Pioneer and take my time and get a lot of footage of the gym and all the facilities and different rooms and different types of teaching rooms and I mean classrooms. And I haven't had a chance. I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to contact Brian and see if I can do that in the next week or two. My only question, though, and maybe someone would know this, maybe Alan, you would know this, is that do we need some sort of permission to be able to share that publicly? Just because it is, they are facilities, and I don't know.
Greg,
Yeah.
I was in Turner's Falls and I took stills of all the facilities.
Okay.
And I talked to the principal. I was there, told them what I was doing, told them what it was going to be used for. It is not in writing formally, but I asked his permission if I could go do that, got keys to go into rooms that were already closed up and whatever. So that's there. I haven't sent them to you because I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do with them anyway. So I didn't want to just dump them on you and have you.
Yeah,
So
sure.
hence the email that I sent you, and I'll resend
Well,
it.
No, that would be great, Deb. And
Don,
if,
you don't have to go over to Turner's Falls and do any footage or stuff like that. So that's all done.
well, do you have video of it, or do you have just stills?
No, we did, once again, you and I can talk, the committee and I talked about what the difference was in the format that we were thinking. We wanted it to be more shorter and succinct rather than a tour, which takes a long time.
Sure.
So in a conversation with two people, someone might say, and what does the softball field at Pioneer look like?
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
someone could just pop up a picture rather than walk from the locker room out to so you could take clips out of the video and use that and just use it dispersed with the others.
Yeah, and
So Greg, I'll get you an answer to that question. Normally, I would just say, look, that's a public building. You're taking pictures of the gyms and the classrooms and so forth. And so in a normal environment, I would say there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now I flip on the safety side and all the stuff that's happening in schools. And I ask myself the question, are we putting out a blueprint of, here's where the auditorium is and the gym is and the classroom, and here's where you get access to the school. And for someone who doesn't have a stable mind, I'll put it that way, I wouldn't want to be, giving them a nice blueprint of the school and how to get around. So let me check on that aspect, but it's a public building, and as long as kids aren't involved, in the video and so forth, I'm not sure that would not be permissible to put out there.
Especially based on what exactly is shown. There's a
What,
difference
Mike?
between showing the blueprint of I'm saying especially if people are careful about what is shown, there's a big difference between showing a blueprint of a building and being inside a classroom, taking a picture of, the science lab bench, say,
Yeah, I would agree. I was going
there
down
are
the
factors.
pathway of, now as we walk down the hall, you can see
But I
on
do
the
think we
left,
need to be careful.
No, I don't think we should.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we want to do that.
Yeah, no, even my video clips were going to be very, very quick and very,
Good. Yeah.
a few seconds to just sort of give a quick sort of panorama of a view of a room, but not like, giving them a walkthrough of the building. I think it's too long and it's too complicated.
I'll get the answer to that. I'll be talking actually to an attorney on Monday, a regional attorney. So
it's not,
I'll ask that question.
I want to get back to Mary.
Yeah. Mary, we're gonna try to, so what are you thinking? Like something like a Wednesday, the third Wednesday? I don't have a calendar, right? In August, or when are people gonna be starting to get back into
When does school open? Make sure you get it before then.
before school opens?
I mean, it's-
Renee, when does school open at Pioneer?
First faculty reports on the 29th of August.
Mhm.
And Bill, or let's see, who's at Turner's Falls? Bill, when does school open there?
That'd be about the same.
About the same time, a little earlier, I think, but in the same week.
Yeah,
Well,
so
that's the
does,
Monday.
All right, so
That-
maybe the week before.
what's
Teachers have,
what's the third Wednesday in August? What's that date?
It's 17th.
17th.
Is that too early, or could that work?
Around.
I think that would be good because then we can gear up for September.
Okay, August 17th. Now, did 6:30 work better? We did 7 today.
I like 6:30.
6:30.
6:30?
Yeah.
Okay, 6:30, Wednesday, August 17th. And Mary, maybe you could send out an update, just an email update to some of the things, so people, if you're able to pull people together, just
Sure.
sort of how it went, so people can get an idea, or how it didn't go.
I
Um,
will definitely do that. Would you like me also to set up the Zoom for that meeting?
Yes, with the remote meeting with the teachers?
No, I mean
Oh, Yes,
the,
yes,
the,
if you set it up, we won't have the restriction.
right, that's what I was thinking. And I do have an account, so shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that would be really good. And then to Greg's point, the working groups, Greg, you and I are still questions and answers from previous, now that we have some time. Let's focus on getting those and sharing those, see if people agree with our answers. Deb, thank you so much for running with this. Bill, thank you so much for hanging in there. I really do appreciate, because you did start the ball rolling, in terms of it's on their radar screen, however it started. I really do appreciate that. I'm glad you took that initiative. So conversations have started.
all
Could
right.
I also just ask anybody who is planning a committee meeting to let me know so I can get it on our joint calendar? I'm not sure what we're doing with the calendar, but we can just make
Yeah,
sure.
The working group meetings.
Working group.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Alan, could I just quickly respond to what Renee said?
Yeah, sure.
Because Renee, you asked for feedback on what our purpose is. And I agree with you that our purpose is to make a recommendation. That's what we're in the process of. We're in the process of, the way I see it, we're in the process of collecting information from which we will make a recommendation. And I do think, thinking about that, it occurs to me that we may have to walk a kind of a fine line when we talk about getting people excited about the possibilities, because that starts sounding like we've already decided this is a good thing. And I personally haven't decided that. And I think we need to be careful not to come across as if we have. At the same time, try not to dampen any enthusiasm that someone else might have when they think about it. So, and I'm not saying that, I mean, it's, like I say, it's a fine line. But that's what I think we're doing. So.
Yeah, and
if other
I
people-
think that, that's right on point. We will be making a recommendation. But part of the collection of this process is to get into the weeds now with the staff about a dream school or district or whatever, what is possible, so that we could share, because I think parents are pretty informed, in terms of, I get this here, I don't get this there. I'm going to leave and go to a charter school, or I'm going to leave and they decide with their child where they're going. And I think that if people are excited about what could be possible and what they could do, those are the questions they're going to be asking. You know, what, if we make a recommendation for or not, we'll still have to answer the questions, well, what were the most salient points that supported a recommendation to form or not to form? So that's down the road. However, we can get information from students and parents and teachers and the community, and the boards of selectmen. I think we need to, a lot of boards probably have new people on it, and probably re-engage them to let them know what's been going on the last 3.5 years. So thank you, Mike.
Alan, I agree, but I do think, you know, I want to be careful too about the idea of a dream school. I don't think we want to overpromise.
No.
Because all along we've talked about things that could be possible, things that might be possible. And I think we need to keep in mind that all of those things won't happen. And I've been hoping that as we move along, we can narrow into what an actual merge to district with a combined budget equal to the budgets of the existing districts might actually be able to do. In other words, it's not going to spend a lot more money. It is going to have the same staff, we'll assume. What could that do? And I don't think that's all the things on the list in Mary's report. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's
No, I
my
think you're right.
impression.
I think we
Okay.
have to dig
And
down more.
if it isn't, then what is it?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can come up with a better answer for that. Because if we tell people that, oh, if we combine, we'll have, you know, we could have better sports programs, we could have a better theater program, we could have a band, and all this and that, and this and that, and this and that, and then it doesn't happen, people are going to feel ripped off.
Yeah.
And they'll be right.
Right.
So I think we need to be careful of that.
Yeah. Bill, you get the last comment, and then we're gonna, at 9:07, we'll adjourn.
It's more a request. I want to know if the committee, the whole board, or you, Alan, want me to approach and ask the school committee of Pioneer to back us, or can you that are on the Pioneer committee do something to that effect?
Let me have a conversation with Rainer and Karen and and see what might be the best way to engage Pioneer. So, and then I can follow up with you, Bill.
That's great. I don't want to act as if I'm autonomous myself, so it's up to you and the board if I can do that.
Yeah, and by the way, just so people know, congratulations to Rainer. She is the new chair of the Pioneer Valley Regional School District. Karen is the vice chair. So, yeah, we're really happy to have her leadership and her willingness to step forward. So thank you, Raina.
Yes.
All right. Anyone want to make a motion? And thank you, Mary, for all the hard work you've done.
Motion
Much
to adjourn.
appreciated. We'll talk some more.
Okay,
I'll
thanks.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That
Second.
was Mike,
Second.
seconded by
Everyone.
Greg and everyone. All right, thank you so much. Enjoy
Bye.
the rest of your July and August. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
And thank you.
Nice